I think it was a calling. It's a worthwhile job helping people. I feel good about what I've done. I've saved a lot of lives personally, and you can't put a ticket on that.
I came in '94 initially, and I did 4 years and got out for 15 years. Coming back in, it has changed exponentially, and the Coast Guard is a much more modernized service now, and we have an amazing group of people that are still out there doing the job. We have several mission sets, but the two primary that you're going to find is search and rescue and law enforcement. We still do the bulk of the search and rescue out there. We have got other government agencies that work with us and help us out, and then we have a lot of law enforcement capabilities for fisheries, as well as interdiction with migrants and drugs.
When I learned what the mission was, to save lives, property, and to guard the country, that seemed like a better fit to me than doing something like the Army or Navy, like the gentleman we spoke to before. He wanted to join something that did something instead of something that destroyed something. And that was a major draw, that and the small boats. I really liked the idea of driving a small boat.
Most of the branch of the service, they train for a job they're probably never going to do. It's mainly combat oriented. Whereas in the Coast Guard, you train for the job you're going to do every single day. And we're more of a life-saving service than a life-taking service. So that's kind of my purpose with the Coast Guard.
When I was a kid, I used to always see the Coast Guard up in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And I really admired what they did. So it started when I was very young. And I set my aspirations to join. I've seen a lot, I've done a lot, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I needed to get out of the small town that I was living in, and I wanted to join the Navy, but my dad was like, look more into the Coast Guard, and I saw that it was more family oriented, and it's a smaller branch, obviously, so I thought that was going to be a better fit for me. I just needed stability, and I didn't want to go to college, because I was going to college.
You had to have a tight community because the job that you do requires you to rely on everybody. You know, there's nobody that can't say, oh, I'm not going to do that, and the job falls apart. So you go out there in heavy weather to save people. You get a camaraderie, much like when you're in combat, because every time you go out, the weather's always bad. They never call you for help when it's nice outside. So every time you go out, you stand the chance of not coming back. And that builds a lot of teamwork because you have to trust the person you're with.
We have Station Point Judith here, which had rowboats, and then we also, where our boathouse is 2.5 miles away, and that's what used to be formerly Station Galilee. And then we also have Block Island, which was also a Coast Guard station. We have two 45s, they're response boat mediums, and they're jet drives. And then we also have a 29-foot response boat 2 small, and that's outboards. Just out of curiosity, what's the first thing you notice that's different about this boat from boats you've seen in the past?
Well, I'm looking at a radar that's recessed instead of what we used to have.
What about this?
Oh, the steering wheel.
Well, it's on the wrong side of the boat.
Ours was in the middle.
Or always on the right-hand side, always on the starboard side. This boat they put on the port side, and the theory is, kids coming in these days, they're used to driving on that side from a car. Here's my problem though. If you have more than 4 people on this boat and one's standing and he falls forward, on a 25, my coxswain console was here. My throttles are on the right-hand side. Right now, they're in the middle. If somebody falls forward, they just fall right into my throttles.
That's a good point.
So that's one of the things that I don't like about this. They tried something new. I think what you're going to see is the replacement for this will likely have it back on the starboard side. All right, so down here in our forward survivor's cabin, a lot different than what you used to see.
Oh my God.
Jump seats with seat belts, so it's a lot more comfortable.
Oh man.
We have a small sink, we have a microwave, we have a head that's right behind you, a full head, but it's a lot different than it used to be.
It's pretty classy in there though.
Yes. So, and we also have air conditioning and heat.
When I joined in the 70s, there was a running joke that you had to be at least 7 foot tall to join the Coast Guard. And the reason that joke came about is because no one knew that you actually left the shore. It was all about, you had to be 7 foot so you could walk out and not drown. And I needed a special waiver because, of course, I was 5'7". So now they realize the Coast Guard is everywhere. We had people in South America. We had people overseas. The Coast Guard is the only armed service that's been in every conflict the country's ever had. We actually rode and drove the LSTs that drove the soldiers to Normandy. We were the ones that piloted those boats. And in the 70s, the people weren't so aware of that, so it was a big joke. You had movies coming out like Boatniks and stuff like that that made a joke of the Coast Guard. Now I see that a lot of people actually recognize what the Coast Guard is, and they recognize the Coast Guard as a service. So I think I like the way the Coast Guard is perceived today better than the way it was perceived before.
Tonight, we are hearing from Coast Guard rescuers who saved 3 local fishermen.
The Coast Guard making the save at sea. And this morning, we're hearing from one of the rescuers.
This is Coast Guard Sector Los Angeles on Channel 16. What is your position and number of persons on board?
I
Over.
was on the West Coast on an 87-foot patrol boat, and I was the first cutter that was on scene with the motor vessel Conception, which is the largest maritime loss of life since the Titanic. So they had 34 people that died in that vessel when it caught fire and sunk. A lot of units that were there, other government agencies as well as other small boat stations that were there. And we were out there as the main platform for the entire recovery of that, with the victims as well as keeping people away from the area while the other agencies did their job.
We do check rides, which are like practical evaluations. So I was in the middle of a practical evaluation, and sure enough, we got a Mayday call. Since it was during an evaluation, I thought it was a drill, but it wasn't a drill. There's an actual Mayday off here, Point Judah. There's a fishing boat on fire with 3 people on board, and so all of a sudden, my check ride, my evaluation turned into an actual search and rescue case, and we saved those 3 people's lives.
Normally, it was always in bad weather. Boats banging around, damage to stuff, trying to get people off boats when the weather's really bad. I've had 2 close calls in my life where I almost died, and that's why I wear 2 earrings, to remember the cases. Well, one case, I was on a sailboat. It was taken on water. It was about 100 miles off the Virginia coast in the ocean. And I got on board, and we got a pump going to try to dewater it. We were able to get the crew of the boat off the boat onto our boat, and then the boat started sinking. I got trapped inside the cabin house. So I'm in the cabin house, and the boat's going down. And it was kind of surreal to watch the water line rise in the portholes because I knew it was done. I was done. And I don't know how I broke free, but I got out of the sailboat and made it to the top, and then it took a while for the ship to find me.
I've enjoyed my experience in the Coast Guard. I don't think this job is for everybody. I think it's very specific people that stay in the Coast Guard for the long term. It's just depending on your personality type and how you deal with other people that allows you to stay in for a really long time.
The thing about the Coast Guard when I was in was it wasn't a 9 to 5. You never knew what you were going to do, who you were going to be doing it with, or where you were going.
We've always been do more with less. The Coast Guard in the United States has focused a lot more of our budget into revitalizing our fleet, so we have much more capable assets. Absolutely amazing.
I think they play a very important role in modern society. Yeah, living my dream.